Good evening. Welcome. I call to order the regular meeting of the Lakewood City Council for February 22nd, 2016. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Paul.
Here.
Wickman. Here. Vincent. Roybal.
Here.
Harrison. Here. Johnson.
Here.
Shakti.
Here.
Abel.
Here.
Goop. Franks. Gutwein. Here. You have a quorum.
Thank you. All right. Well, again, I'd like to welcome those in audience and those tuning in on Channel 8 or potentially online. If you do have a cell phone in the audience, please put that sucker on silent so we can get moving and not have any interruptions. And if you wouldn't mind standing for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a moment of silent prayer. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. All right, so we'll move on to item 4, which is public comment. This is the point in the meeting where the public is invited to address the City Council on items that did not appear on the agenda. All comments should be directed to the City Council. I will ask all in attendance to observe the decorum of City Council chambers and refrain from applause or audible support or discord with the speaker. There is a 3-minute limit per speaker. The indicator lights on the lectern will glow yellow after 2.5 minutes and red when your 3 minutes is up. And are our lights working tonight?
I believe so.
All right. Thank you. And first on the list, Mr. Vaughn, come on down.
My name is Newt Vaughn, and I live in Ward 5, and this weekend I went to a ward meeting, not happened to be a Ward 5 meeting, but there was some complaints about snow removal. People thought that they ought to drive these big trucks down the cul-de-sacs and clean them out. Got news for you folks, them big trucks don't turn around in them cul-de-sacs like your car does. There's cars parked in there, and then where would they pile the snow if they could push it there in your driveway or mine? So when you see a snowplow go down the street and he passes up your cul-de-sac, you might know the reason. There was some suggestions that they use pickups, but the pickup still has the same problem. He's got to pile snow somewhere. So where is he going to pile it? If he piles it in the middle of the cul-de-sac, then you have an icing condition when it melts a little bit and then refreezes. So if you live on a cul-de-sac and you're unfortunate enough to do that, why, that's what happens. I've driven a big vehicle in this town, and if you haven't ever done that, we've had to turn school buses around in these cul-de-sacs, and that don't work. So don't be so critical of these people. I think they do a pretty good job. There was some complaints about Colfax and about Kipling. Those happen to be state highways, and it's a state responsibility. State does a good job in some places, and some places they don't. It's kind of a hit and a miss deal, too. One night we spent helping police agents close part of Kipling, and the state came out and did some work, and they didn't even tell us that they had got the work done. It was that they were able to drive cars on there. We had to go experiment ourselves and find out. So the state is very negligent in what they do too. So instead of calling the city of Lakewood and complaining about Colfax and Kipling and Wadsworth and a few other state highways, call the state and complain to them. I think the city of Lakewood does a pretty good job. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vaughn. Ms. Springsteen. Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm not here to talk about group homes, so relax.
We have it on the TVs. Mm-hmm.
Oh, you can? Oh, well, that's good. Okay.
The chambers can't, but you can describe it if you'd like.
Okay, thank you. Should I start now?
Please.
Okay. My name is Anita Springsteen. I live at 1593 South Newland Street. And on December 10th, I was at Lasley Park Playground with my 4-year-old son at about 5 p.m. As the light faded, he ran and smashed his face directly onto a pole. He couldn't see it because there is no lighting at the playground, so blood was pouring out of his mouth, and I was thinking concussion, loss of teeth. The reason this annoyed me so much is that I had put the city on notice of a dangerous condition of the playground nearly 2 years ago. We were denied a neighborhood participation grant in 2014 when we attempted to replace the playground, and were told not to apply in 2015, and then were later told we should have applied because there was no money. Staff agrees that the playground does not meet the Consumer Product Safety Commission safety regulations, and some of the dangers include lack of lighting. The platform to climb on or off the playground equipment is 27 inches high, and the CPSC says it should be no more than 7 inches high. It comes up to my 4-year-old's shoulder, which I'll show you in the pictures in a minute. The playground was built on a slope rather than level ground, so the mulch just slides downhill, and it should be 12 inches deep, but it's maybe an inch deep in parts. The surfacing has been coming off, creating a trip hazard. There's sharp metal projecting where a steering wheel once was. Surfacing in the front and back of the swing should be twice the height of the suspending bar. In this case, it's only 9 feet, and paint is chipping off the swings, which could be a lead-based paint issue. Presumably, my complaints and Councillor Royball's concern prompted city staff to start a process for improving Lasley Park. A class at CU is working on a master plan, but when I asked them what kind of budget they're working with, they said they had none. And staff told me a year ago and again last month that there's no money for this project. Yet 5 other playgrounds were selected for replacement, and apparently $6.5 million was spent on Ray Ross Park. If this project is going to take another year to implement or to get funding, that will be too late. We need a new playground now, and I don't want to see my children getting hurt again. I'm just going to briefly show you these pictures. That's the pole. This is how high the platform is, 27 inches. It's up to my son's chest. So it's hard to get up on and off. That's just some of the stuff coming off, and the metal shards, and then the paint chipping. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks for coming out. Is your son okay?
Well, I think his teeth got chipped a little, but fortunately no concussion. So thank you.
Yep, thank you. Mr. Mace?
On my way, man.
Yes, sir. Take your time.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, James Mace, Ward 2. I'm here tonight on an issue that I have spoken to Councilor Coop about. Back in late January, actually January 27th, I was again struck by a vehicle at Kendall and Colfax, crossing from one side of Kendall to the other, from the right side of Kendall from the left side of Kendall to the right side of Kendall. I'm asking the city to put lighting on Kendall, a flashing light warning drivers that there are people crossing in that intersection. The crosswalk was removed from that intersection. The light was also removed from that intersection. I have also spoke to Commander Pat Hebner and all the commanders in my area. I am asking the city to do this before somebody gets killed. Virtually, I was not seriously hurt, but again, Lakewood and West Metro did absolutely nothing. The agents that were on scene that night told me they were going to write it up as an incident. And West Metro also did nothing. I had to call them back to have them take me to the emergency room. They refused to take me to the emergency room due to my wheelchair. And I am asking the city to please put lighting at Kendall and Colfax. And Mayor, if you would please, after public comment, I would really appreciate it if council would listen to Councilor Coop and get his feedback on what I explained to him and what he's found. So if that's possible, it would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Mr. Mace. Marco Saez.
Come on down, Marcos.
Welcome. Whichever one's easiest for you.
Hello, council. I've been paying attention to the news lately a lot, and I think there's one important subject that needs to be discussed. And that one subject that needs to be discussed is bullying, because every time we send our kids to school, it always seems to end up in violence. And these violence need to stop so that we could have more safer schools for our children. And I know this because I work for a program where I help children raise money for kids who do not have any school supplies or any classrooms or anything. And I hope that the parents understand where I'm coming from, because as I've talked to my mentor, James Mace, every time there's somebody bullying another child, it always ends up in suicide, killing, violence, and I just think we need to make a more safer environment for our children.
Thank you. Thanks for coming down.
You're welcome.
I like your backpack.
Thank you.
Miss Cap? Is that Mandy Cap? Good evening. Welcome.
You just stand right here and look cute. Okay, so I am Mandy Cap, and we are new to Lakewood. We moved in about, it's been 5 months now, so I guess we're not that new, but we're newer. And we live right across the street from Lasley Park. And I was super excited because Lakewood has tons of awesome parks. We go play at them all the time. I also have a 2-year-old and an 8-month-old, so we like to be out. However, we trekked our way over to Lasley Park and were severely disappointed. My 2-year-old is probably 30 inches tall, so the platform comes to here on her face. And I'm holding my 8-month-old, so it's not super easy for me to get her up on the toys all the time. And it's kind of high, so she can fall off, and she's kind of a klutz, so she does. The other problem, there's lots of issues with safety, but the park is just kind of subpar compared to the rest of Lakewood parks. Kendrick Lake Park is phenomenal. Belmar Park. There's all these parks that we now drive to. We don't really go to Lasley Park, and I think it's such a shame because it's right there and it has all this potential space. And I was super excited because I went to the meeting with the college students. They had all these great ideas, and I thought that they had the funding. So I thought that's why we were doing that. So when I found out that they didn't, and it was kind of well, it might happen, it might not, I was kind of disappointed because that park has so much potential, and currently it is not safe. It's not a place I feel comfortable taking my kids. It's not somewhere that they really enjoy playing. There's not enough for them to do. And they can't get on it. They can't play on the playground equipment. So currently we drive elsewhere. And enjoy all the other amazing parks in Lakewood. It's just a shame that the one by our house is so subpar. And hopefully we can get the funding and get that taken care of, at least so that it's safe. So that's my little bit. Thanks.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thanks for coming out, and welcome to Lakewood.
Thank you.
So that exhausts the folks that have signed up to speak. Is there anybody else in chambers who would like to comment on a non-agenda item? All right, with that, I will close public comment. I think there'll be some questions. I'll comment on Mr. Vaughn. Thank you for your words of appreciation for our plow crews. We generally don't plow cul-de-sacs. You know, we do have a priority system. In this last go-around, we did make an effort to plow most of the streets in the city due to the forecast that there was going to be ongoing cold. So that's tends to be how they do that. We always make sure that we get the 1s and 2s. But if you do live on a cul-de-sac like I do, there's a good chance you're not going to see a snowplow. Ms. Hodson, would you please comment on Lasley Park and the funding?
Sure, thank you. And I'd like to thank the citizens for their comments. It has been exciting that we're able to work with the CU students on some master planning of the site. As many of you heard earlier at our orientation, our finance director talked about the process for the budget. So although the project itself isn't funded at this point, the whole idea behind the design is to determine what the needs and wants are of the citizens and of the neighbors. And then from that information, that will be submitted through the budget process. So you can look forward to seeing a request in the upcoming budget to fund what was designed through this process with the CU students. So we sure appreciate how much people love our playgrounds and our parks, and it is our responsibility to keep those in good shape for these kiddos. So you'll see that request once again at the upcoming budget, which I think will be submitted to you toward the very end of the summer, early fall, as normal. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hodson. Mr. Abel has a follow-up.
Ms. Springsteen mentioned that she was first told not to apply for funding because it would be approved or it was coming, and then told she should have applied for the funding because it's not there. Can you enlighten us on that? Or
I actually can't enlighten you on that specifically, but I wrote myself a note to look into that.
Thank you very much.
That's what I'll do. You bet.
Mr. Coop.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just like to update everybody on what I know about Mr. Mesa's concerns, and I appreciate James giving me a call and telling me personally the situation out there. What had happened was that when he did contact the city, the service request was put through. There was some mistaken information that they looked into, and so I followed up with them again, and they've reopened the case, knowing the correct location now that you're concerned about. So there is information going to be coming, and I know that that's a very, very busy place with There's a bus stop very, very close by there as well. And people remember used to be a light there, a traffic light, but there isn't now. And Mr. Mace is right that it is kind of a dangerous little intersection right there that I hope we can fix in the very near future.
Sir? Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. For 4 years, James, I've watched as you've come in front of City Council and pointed out things on West Colfax that can be improved on because you care. It takes you 10 times the amount of energy and 10 times longer to get to this chamber than it does any of us. And I just want to thank you. You're awesome.
Councilor Roybal.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to follow up on Lasley Park. If this is correct, we don't have funding currently for that particular playground, or did we get funding last year to do replacement of playgrounds?
You know, I don't have that. I wondered that as well. I don't have that list with me here in terms of what playgrounds were funded. Either way, do you happen to have the list, Councilor Roybal?
I do not, but I think Lasley Park was on it. There was 3 parks. It was Lasley Park, Founders Park,
You're right.
and Bonfils Staten Park.
All in Ward 3.
All in Ward 3.
We were excited about that. So
what's our timeline to get those playgrounds replaced?
Thank you. Thank you for that. Had it not been on the list, then it would have been a request at the budget time. So the plan is to do the design. First, there's a process that we go through. First is the design. First is the gathering information. What do citizens want to see? What do the neighbors want to see? What should that playground look like and act like? And what, so we can reflect the interest of the neighbors. Then it'll go out for bid. Then there'll be a design done, then it'll go out to bid, and then it'll be underway. And I know that process has already started, obviously, with the CU students, so I can keep you updated as that progress continues.
So just get some clarification.
Sure.
The playground itself is under a different budget than the park itself, the renovation of the park. Is that correct? Or
that's a good question. Thank you. So at the last budget session, you gave a special approval. Council gave a special approval for some additional dollars and identified specific playgrounds that were to be funded with these additional dollars. And Lasley Park was a part of that. So what was approved at that time was for the playground. So that would be separate than the broader park, the redevelopment of the entire park. The playground would be done separately, but frankly, to be able to take advantage of some efficiencies, we'll most likely be trying to do those together.
Okay. Now,
less disruption.
Another follow-up question. That being said, and I understand that we want to maximize our dollars and become very efficient with it. But the question now remains is that the existing playground that is there now, is there any way we can bring that up to code or through bring it up to the standard where it needs to be, the city code?
Yeah, probably not. So that playground is pretty old, and there, as you saw in the pictures, there are some real deficiencies with that playground. So that will there's usually very little to be salvaged from it. So we'll take that out and put in a whole new playground.
But temporarily, till we get the new playground, can we bring some, let's say, for example, some sand or something to box it in to make sure that the playground is safe?
I don't know the answer to that, but we can sure look into that. Okay. I happen to know that our Director of Community Resources is watching right now, so she just emailed me and said she's watching. So, yes, we'll look into that and see what we can do.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Thank you. Ms. Hodson, if you do get more information coming through, please feel free to share. Shakti and I were just conversing. I didn't think Lasley was on that list of parks.
Yeah, so The director of community resources is just telling me that it's not on the list. So the bottom line is whether it's on the list of funding that was approved last year or not, you'll see it in the upcoming budget. So, right, that's the intent. Once you do the design, you hope to be able to follow that with the real thing.
That makes sense. So we're going to have the design done with some dollars, with some numbers, and then that'll come before the council to look at for putting into the budget. Well, the time frame, I mean, budget, we start doing the budget in August. So we would approve in October probably October. And then it would be into 2017, probably when construction would start, if those funds are allocated.
In addition, we'll have an update. This seems like a lot of information, a little bit confusing. So I'll ask our Director of Community Resources to provide a sheet of paper that gives us an update and answers to all these questions.
Okay. Councilor Vincent.
And that'll have the MPP information on it also?
It will.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Will the clerk please read item 5?
Item 5, Proclamation World Spay Day.
And I would like to welcome down Cassie Stenstrom, the Executive Director of Spay Today, and one of our West Metro Fire District Board representatives.
And my staff.
Whereas pets provide companionship to 68% of U.S. households, and whereas spaying and neutering pets play a critical role in caring for pets and residents are encouraged to spay and neuter their pets, and whereas spaying and neutering improve the health of pets, reduce unruly behavior, and save on the cost of pet care, and whereas these measures also benefit the community because spaying and neutering reduce the number of homeless pets that end up in shelters or become feral, and whereas nearly 90% of pets that are living in poverty and 98% of feral and stray cats are unaltered, and whereas programs exist to assist with the cost of spaying or neutering pets, including a Foothills Animal Shelter serving Lakewood, and whereas spaying and neutering have been shown to reduce dramatically the number of animals who have to be put down by shelters, and whereas veterinarians, national and local animal organizations, and residents are working together to build awareness about the importance of spaying or neutering pets through World Spay Day. Now, therefore, on behalf of the City Council and the people of the City of Lakewood, I, Adam Paul, Mayor of the City of Lakewood, Colorado, by virtue of the authority vested in me, do hereby recognize World Spay Day as February 23rd, 2016.
All right. Well, there you go.
Can we take a picture?
Sure. Cassie, please introduce your folks and tell us a little about your organization. I think you have some events coming up as well.
We do. Thank you, Mayor, City Council. It's my pleasure to be before you again. I am new to Spay Today. It's an exciting venture. I'm very excited to be part of this nonprofit. I'd like to introduce part of my staff. We have Marina Wilson, our office manager, Dr. Angelina Piccoli, our chief veterinarian and founder, and our board president, Tracy O'Brien. I'll be very brief, but Spay Today Neuter Now is the largest nonprofit spay and neuter clinic in Jefferson County. Last year, we performed over 8,000 spay and neuter surgeries, which is significantly helping to reduce the number of animals entering our shelters, including Foothills, and really helping make sure that we have less homeless pets because ultimately they end up in very unfortunate circumstances. So thank you very much for proclaiming World Spay Day. I did send an invitation to everyone, but I want to invite the public to join us on Thursday at our Spaghetti and No Balls World Spay Day dinner at Lakeview Event Center. It's at 7864 West Jewell Avenue from 5:30 to 8. And you can visit our website, www.spay2day.org, to register and buy tickets. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for coming out. Please read item 6.
Item 6, presentation, citizen commendation.
Chief Paletta, good evening.
Evening, Mayor Paul, members of City Council, Kevin Paletta, Lakewood Police Chief. If I could get Jennifer Larson to come down, and also Agent Chuck Conrad. Agent Conrad is the agent who nominated Ms. Larson for this award this evening. I'm going to read a synopsis of the events that bring us here this evening. On the afternoon of September 24th, 2015, Agent Chuck Conrad finished a call at the Target store at Belmar when he heard loud screams coming from a woman in distress. He followed the sounds to the pharmacy where he found a mother with her 2-year-old son who was not breathing and was turning blue. Believing the child was choking, Target pharmacy manager Jennifer Larson tried a series of back blows and abdominal thrusts with little effect. Agent Conrad attempted to dislodge the blockage as well, but the child remained in distress. Ms. Larson eventually cleared the child's mouth of excessive phlegm and began to deliver rescue breathing. Slowly, the child began labored and shallow breathing, and his natural color soon returned. Ms. Larson continued her efforts until the arrival of paramedics, who transported the child and his mother to the hospital, where it was learned that the child was suffering from an undiagnosed illness that resulted in a very high fever and ultimately his choking. Ms. Larson, there is no doubt that without your quick and selfless actions, the child's condition would have deteriorated, possibly resulting in the loss of his life. I take this time to commend you for your composure during a stressful situation, your willingness to help during a crisis, and your immediate intervention regardless of the risks that it presented to your own health and safety. As a result of your actions, it is my pleasure to present you this Chief's Commendation for your swift reaction that saved the life of a small child. And on behalf of all, I thank you. Thank you.
I don't really know what to say, but thank you for this honor. I just did what I felt was right, and I hope that other people would do the same. And thank you, Agent Conrad, for this honor. I really appreciate it.
Very cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, moving on to the consent agenda. The use of the consent agenda has been made to expedite council action. It contains both resolutions and first reading ordinances. Resolutions are items of a routine nature. Members of the public will have an opportunity in a moment to comment on any of the proposed resolutions. First reading ordinances appear on the agenda only for the purpose of setting future public hearing dates and ordering the newspaper publication of their proposed ordinance. No public comments will be heard this evening on first reading ordinances. The public will have the opportunity to comment on the proposed ordinances during the scheduled public hearings on the dates set tonight by the City Council. Any council members may request an item on the consent agenda to be removed for separate discussion and action under general business. Will the city clerk please read the items on the consent agenda into the record?
The consent agenda consists of items 7 through 11 inclusive. Item 7, Resolution 2016-8, endorsing the 2016-2017 Head Start grant application for the purpose of submitting the funding request to the federal government. Item 8, Ordinance O 2016-1, to rezone land located at 7590, 7570, and 7400 West Quincy Avenue, City of Lakewood, County of Jefferson, State of Colorado. Item 9, Ordinance O 2016-2, changing the southerly portions of O'Kane and Washington Heights Park from open space and park purposes to open space park and public street purposes to accommodate existing and new improvements along West First Avenue. Item 10, approving the minutes of the regular city council meeting of January 25th, 2016. And item 11, accepting the minutes of the Advisory Commission for Inclusive Communities Executive Committee meeting of January 6, 2016, and their full commission meeting of November 18th, 2015.
Thank you very much. And before we open up public comment on the resolutions, I'll just say at our last meeting we had a presentation from Sherry Peterson on the Head Start grant. So if you want to go back and check that out, you can. And then items 8 and 9, there'll be presentations on those upon second reading. So is there any public comment on the consent agenda? Seeing none, I will close public comment and ask for a motion.
Mayor Paul, I move for approval of the council minutes, for acceptance of the minutes of boards and commissions, order all ordinances introduced on first reading to be published in the Denver Post with public hearings set for the date included in the ordinance, and for adoption of resolutions, all of which are included in the consent agenda, items introduced into the record by the city clerk.
I second.
All right, there's been a motion and a second. Any discussion by council? All right, seeing none. Let me get that going. Please cast your votes. All right. So with that, the consent agenda passes. 11 ayes, 0 nays. And that brings us to item 12, general business. Item 13, executive report, Ms. Hodson.
Thank you. I only have just one reminder. You just approved first reading for the rezoning at Quincy and Wadsworth. Just a reminder that the actual hearing is on March 14th, and anyone who has comments or concerns or just want to hear the discussion, please make sure to come to City Council on the 14th of March at 7 p.m. in the chambers. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So we'll move into item 14, mayor and council reports. Had the great opportunity to attend a couple events today. I don't know if Councilor Abel and Coop or Shakti are going to talk about those. All right. Well, I'll let Councilor Abel talk about the one we were at. But we went to an open house at Infinite Harvest. It's on the frontage road just west of Sheridan, and it's a indoor vegetable grow facility, and it was just amazing to see what they're doing, and basically on benches. And the gentleman who started it is an astrophysicist, I believe, and it's essentially what they would envision that you would do in Mars, but what he's doing is creating or growing these vegetables here and selling them to local grocery stores and restaurants, and it's a really cool facility. So that was neat to go out there and kind of check that out. A lot of cool stuff there. And I have an event coming up on Saturday at Addenbrook Park from 10 till whenever, probably 10 till noon. But it's going to be a walk and talk. So part of my year of health, want to get out there with the community. Please come and join me. And we'll get some exercise in and talk about what's going on in Lakewood and listen to your concerns if you have any. And last but certainly not least, the West Chamber honored George Valek of the Alameda Gateway Association on Friday night with the Steve Burkholder Diamond Legacy Award. It was a really nice honor to see that go to George, who's been a lot of things to the city of Lakewood. So congratulations, George. Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Thank you. The third Saturday in March will be the Ward 1 meeting. This time we'll be meeting at the old City Council chambers that is housed in the police department. We're doing something a little different this time. We've got a speaker coming from the CELL, C-E-L-L, Counterterrorism Education Learning Lab. Lakewood is not independent of the region that we live, the state that we live, nationally or internationally. Terrorism and homeland security have become everyday words for all of us. Larry is going to come and talk to us about the 8 signs of terrorism, We're opening this up to everybody to come and just learn. It's not intended to be a frightening kind of a presentation, but certainly educational. And we're asking all the other wards to join us. Third Saturday in March, 9 o'clock. It will probably run till 11. He's got a very nice video. Please come and join us. Thank you.
Thank you. Council President Shakti.
Two things. One, first, our ward meeting this Saturday is canceled because the church had other things going on. And then I just wanted to say sort of a brief statement about, so the Denver Regional Council of Governments is also the area agency on aging, and they do lobbying, state and federal lobbying in our interests. And one of the things that Congress is looking at right now is the Older Americans Act. And the way that they're looking at apportioning the money, they're not taking into consideration the changes in the demographic. So in other words, our percentage of people over 65 in Colorado has gone up dramatically. I think it might be by like 40%. And we're not going to get a proportional amount of the funding. And the states that instead have no change or reduction in their older population are going to be getting a higher percent. So all of the Colorado delegations, so the Democrats and the Republicans, are working to change that. But it's not clear that it will be changed yet, so tell all your friends in other states to lobby. And the truth is that it hurts Colorado more than most states, but there are many, many states, maybe most states, where it actually hurts their citizens too. So.
All right, thank you. I'm going to go to my right, Councillor Wickman.
No report.
Councillor Vincent.
No report.
Councillor Roybal.
No report.
Jeez. Councillor Harrison.
Well, I can't go with that.
Go on.
I have to remind everybody that we all have the chance to really make a grassroots difference in our political system, and that is caucuses are coming up. Please attend, have your voice heard. It's the very most important thing that the most important right that we have as citizens, and that is to speak and speak loudly. So attend your caucus and be part of that. Thank you.
Councillor Abel.
To follow that, March 1st are the caucuses, 7 p.m. The county clerk's office has an icon you can click on to get either the Democrats or Republican caucus locations. Also today, the mayor referred to ribbon cutting earlier today for the new medical office building on the St. Anthony's campus. They'll have an ambulatory surgical clinic. They're really driving the growth out in that area, the redevelopment in that area. And I was a bit remiss because as part of that, the law firm of Buchanan and Stouffer in December had an open house for their new offices. They're just west of St. Anthony's on 2nd, and it's really fancy digs. They've done a great job, and they've brightened that area quite a bit. So we appreciate their investment in Lakewood.
Thank you, Councilor Ayla, and thanks for mentioning that. That was quite a deal that they've done there, a nice rehab of that building. Councilor Coop. Councilor Franks.
Well, hi. I certainly wanted to thank everybody from Ward 4. We are seeing some great turnout in our ward meetings, but a few people have reached out to me, saying that the second Saturday of every month is not convenient, and I just want to make sure people know that you don't have to, if you're in Ward 4, only go to a Ward 4 meeting. We all have our meetings different days. Some are during the week. Just be sure to identify yourself there. That way they can kind of see where you're at and where you're from, and it helps the dialogue. So we certainly want you to, if our meeting times don't work for you, certainly email us. But if you want to kind of interact with your fellow citizens, just find one of the other meetings and get to know folks. Our Ward 4 meeting, though, the next one is March 12th. It's the second Saturday of each month. We certainly appreciate everybody who brings their concerns. I want to start encouraging people, though, to bring your ideas. I'm fairly new to the council, and there's a lot of things going on. It becomes a little overwhelming when people say, well, I want you to solve this. And so I want to kind of encourage people that if you bring a concern, maybe bring your ideas and let us kind of educate ourselves. Us new on the council, we're going through a really intensive education process thanks to the city. They're helping us see what the challenges are, because things have to be paid for. There's money concerns, there's staffing concerns, property right concerns. And so, we're educating ourselves, but when you bring those concerns, if you can kind of bring ideas and also understand that the wheels of change do move a little slower than you'd expect, there's just a lot going on. But we certainly appreciate everybody who comes out and want to keep encouraging you to keep reaching out to us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I would echo that the wheels of change move a little bit faster at the local level. Councilor Gutwein.
Thank you. Also, just wanted to touch on our ward meeting. We were really excited about the number of people that came out and really appreciate the time on your Saturday mornings to come talk about our ward. And so thank you for coming, and thank you to Nanette for having a great discussion about Jewel and Wadsworth and economic development there. And we're all working hard to see that area thrive. So we also have our next ward meeting, third Saturday of the month on March 19th, and we will be talking about community safety. Thank you.
All right. Well, that is it. Anything else for the good of the order? All right. With that said, we are adjourned at 7:45 p.m. Have a good